Chapter 12. Those words hit me like a train, each one like a stab to the heart. I felt my chest grow heavy as the weight of what he was saying pressed down on me, stifling any hope I had left. My mouth went dry, words thickening in my throat. What? What do you mean? I finally managed, the words almost a whisper. My voice trembled, sounding far more fragile than I wanted. You're saying we can't go home? I barely recognized my own voice, the desperation, the disbelief, the sudden realization that we were so far from the world we knew that it might as well not exist anymore. I searched Theron's face for any sign of doubt, any trace of hesitation that would give me something to hold on to, but there was none. Just that steady, unyielding gaze that looked back at me with a finality that felt colder than death itself. You cannot return home while Bael walks the free world, he continued. No matter where you go now, no matter how far you run, he has your scent. He will follow. He will always find you. You are bound to him, and so he is drawn to your breath, your heartbeat, your blood. Each of you has become his mark, his beacon. Theron's eyes flashed, a strange mix of grim certainty and something close to pity. But it is that very tether, the life you still hold, that gives us the edge. You're the only reason he will come to us willingly. Each of your heartbeats are a call to him, drags him closer. For as long as you live, we have the power to lure him, to trap him, to give him back to the abyss. Lila's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the silence like a blade. But where are we supposed to go? Theron looked back at each of us in turn, his gaze intense, as though to impress the weight of his words upon us. You will stay with us, he said slowly. While your hearts still beat, there is a chance we can end this. The only way to ensure your survival is to stay in our presence. Though we outnumber him, if he has fed enough, he is far stronger than any of us combined. He took a step closer, his eyes flashing in the dim light. In the light of day, you will be free to roam, to breathe open air. The sun shields you, but the moment it dips below the earth... He paused, letting the silence settle heavy around us. Or if a cloud thick enough shrouds the sky, or you find yourselves in a shadow too deep, there will be nothing stopping him. Theron's expression was unyielding. At the first sign of dusk, you come back to our home. No hesitations, no questions. You stay within our walls, under our watch. Bael can sense you. He can follow that thread through any distance. But right now, he cannot reach you. We are near. He paused, allowing the gravity of it all to sink in. But outside this protection, He will not hesitate. He will tear through flesh and bone until he has you. The realization hit me like a blow to the chest, cold and absolute. We weren't going home. There wasn't a home to go back to anymore. At least in the sense I'd always known. Home is meant to be a place we feel safe, where one can forget about the horrors of the world and be themselves. But in this situation, nowhere is safe. We were the prey of an otherworldly entity, and the only way for us to stay alive was to surround ourselves with more otherworldly entities. We were no longer a part of the same reality as everyone else. It was like some twisted line had been drawn, and we'd found ourselves stranded on the wrong side, in a nightmare that refused to end. Beside me, I could see the same recognition settling over Lila's face, her eyes wide and distant, like she was trying to wake from a dream that refused to let her go. Darwin was the same, but fear, no matter how it showed, clung to each of us, sinking deep within our bones. And then, I thought of what this meant for everyone else, for all the innocent people who had no idea of the sheer danger they were now in. Everyone's lives were now at risk, and it was our fault. I could feel the words clawing their way out of me, desperate and hollow, as though speaking them aloud might make the truth easier to bear. But it didn't. All those people, all those innocent people, I said, my voice trembling under the weight of it. Is there any hope for them? The silence that followed was suffocating, the kind that makes your stomach turn. I already knew the answer, but God, I wish I didn't. Hope, he said, the word tasting bitter on his tongue, as though it were foreign to him. Hope is a lie people tell themselves to soften the blow of what's coming. It's an illusion, a hollow promise whispered into the dark to stave off fear. It is nothing, a fragile thing that shatters in the moment it meets reality. He let the silence stretch, his words hanging in the air like the tolling of a distant bell. But for the people of Willow's home, he continued, they will need far more than hope if they wish to survive what is coming for them. Theron glanced toward the blackness of the forest, as if he could see Bael's shadow stalking unseen. They don't stand a chance, he said, the finality in his tone sending a chill through the air. Even in madness, his sentience lost, his reasoning reduced to primal hunger, Bael remains a predator beyond anything you can comprehend. In his time on this earth, he has had nothing but the hunt to perfect. And with each soul he devours, he will only grow stronger. His voice grew darker, heavier with each word. He will hunt them, yes, but not merely one by one. Bael is no shadow slipping through the cracks, no whisper in the dark. He does not care for subtlety, for inconspicuousness. He will take as many as he desires, in one night, in one breath. Families, households, all gone before they've even begun to scream, before the sun comes up. and it will not end there. Theron's gaze fell to the ground, his voice hollow yet unrelenting. This is why we locked him away. Nothing short of the abyss could contain his hunger. And now, he has access to the free world once again. What he leaves behind won't be counted in lives, but in devastation. It will not be a short number. It never is. I could see by the looks on Darwin and Lila's face that they felt it too. The cold weight of Theron's words pressed down on my chest. And at that moment, a sudden gust of wind tore through the trees, hard enough to bend the very branches. It came without warning, weaving through the trees, carrying with it a different kind of chill that bit into my skin. The breeze wasn't just strong, it was alive, like the very forest itself had exhaled in despair. A howl. It wasn't the kind of howl you'd hear from a normal gale. It didn't even sound natural. Not really. The forest answered it with a long, hollow groan, as if the very land was now aware of the corrupted presence and was howling in agony. Darwin stepped closer, his face pale, his body half hunched like he was bracing for something to leap out of the darkness. Theron was the only one who didn't react, not at first. Slowly, his gaze shifted upward toward the full moon, its silver glow casting pale light over the forest. His expression was unreadable, cold, but there was something in his eyes, something knowing. The family exchanged glances, their movements sharp and instinctive, like a silent language passed between them. It was unnerving how calm they seemed, how practiced, as if they'd been expecting this. Finally, Theron spoke, his voice steady and low. You should go now. His words sent a ripple through us. Lila glanced at Darwin, who looked at me, her eyes, her breathing shallow. But she gave the faintest of nods, like she was trying to convince herself as much as us that we'd make it through this. Darwin stayed quiet, his lips pressed into a thin, trembling line. I nodded back at them, though I wasn't sure why. It wasn't reassurance, exactly. It was more like an unspoken agreement to keep moving. Whatever we were feeling, fear, dread, disbelief, none of it mattered. We didn't have a choice. The family's house wasn't far, just a short walk back up the road, but every step felt like a mile. The trees seemed to crowd closer, their gnarled branches swaying slightly in the cold breeze. The house came into view like a dark wound in the forest, its silhouette jagged and looming against the moonlit sky. No one spoke as we approached. The only sound was the rustle of leaves and the occasional snap of a twig beneath our feet. But that howl, I couldn't stop hearing it, no matter how far behind us it seemed. It clung to the edges of my mind like a shadow that refused to leave. One by one, we followed Theron into the house. The others had spread off into the night. We crossed the threshold into the cold, unwelcoming house. It wasn't home. It couldn't be anything further from it, but for now, it was the only place we had. The coming days would pass in a strange haze. Theron instructed us to retrieve what belongings we could from the wrecked car in town, warning us not to linger, though no one needed the reminder. Walking back to the edge of Willow's Hollow, the street seemed disturbingly normal, too normal. There was no sign of Bael, no indication of chaos or bloodshed. I kept waiting for something to happen, for a scream to break the stillness, or to see a glimpse of that horrifying face staring back at me from the tree line. But there was nothing. By the time we returned to the house, loaded down with what little we could carry, night was falling. We had all agreed, without even needing to discuss it, that none of us would be sleeping in separate rooms. The living room became our makeshift camp. Darwin and I spent most of the evening stoking the fireplace and dragging the ancient furniture together, arranging it into a crude barrier that surrounded the couch and the floor where we'd laid our blankets. "There we go," Darwin said, stepping back to admire our work. "The fortress is complete." His attempts at humor earned a sickle from Lila and a smile from me. None of us could truly laugh. How could we? "I guess this is the closest we can get to feeling at home," I said with a sigh, arms folded. The rest of the night we would exchange stories and joyful experiences we had in our lives, each of us trying to maintain a happy atmosphere amidst the sheer weight of what situation we were in. It wasn't much, but it kept the crushing weight of our situation at bay, though that joy would be short-lived. By the second day, we began to notice the cold. It wasn't just a normal winter chill. It was sharper, heavier, as if it carried some unseen weight. Darwin found an old thermometer among the family's belongings, its face cracked but still functional. "It was 7 degrees yesterday," he announced, frowning at the mercury that now hovered just below freezing. "And now it's already -2. I didn't need a thermometer to tell me things were changing. Frost had begun to spread across the ground outside. The grass and pine needles dusted with a pale silver sheen. The frost crept higher each day, climbing the trunks of the trees and curling along the edges of the windows. Inside the house, our breath hung in the air like ghostly clouds, even with the fire roaring in the hearth. By the third day, the atmosphere in Willow's hollow shifted completely. The world outside grew deathly quiet. There were no birds chirping, no wind rustling through the trees, no distant hum of life in the town. It was as if everything beyond the house had been swallowed home. "It's so quiet," Lila muttered that evening, pulling her blanket tighter around herself. "Even for this place." We could all sense it. The silence, the creeping sense that the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I found myself glancing over my shoulder more often, double glancing at windows, as if expecting to see that devil's face staring back at me. By the fourth morning, the house had grown colder than ever. I woke before the others, the chill biting at my face even under the heavy blankets. I rubbed my arms, shivering, and looked around the room. The fire in the hearth had almost completely died out, its embers casting the faintest of glows. I wandered to the window, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. I padded across the room, the floorboards creaking under my weight. The frost on the glass was thicker now, forming intricate patterns that glimmered faintly in the dim light. I pressed my hand against the glass, the cold biting at my palm, and peered out. The forest was now blanketed in white. Snow had begun to fall, soft and gentle, flakes swirling lazily to the ground. It was the first snow of the season, but it didn't feel like a natural shift in the weather. Not one bit. It felt sudden, intrusive, and most of all, unnatural. I sat down on the window ledge, pulling the blanket tighter around myself. The snow continued to fall, and I found myself mesmerized by it, my thoughts spiraling in circles. The weather, the silence, the cold. It was all too much, too fast. This can't be winter. It couldn't be. "You feel it, don't you?" The voice startled me, and I turned to see Cedric standing behind me, His gaunt, pale face was expressionless, his eyes fixed on the falling snow outside. He stepped closer, brushing his long fingers against the slender curtains on the side of the window. "That chill in the air," he continued, his voice low and deliberate. "That's not winter. Not even close." I frowned, glancing back at the snow. "What is it?" "It's a harbinger, a mark of his presence. The frost will spread, the snow will fall, and when it finally buries the land, that is when he will come." I could feel my breath hitch, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the window. Cedric continued, his words as sharp and biting as the frost creeping into the room. "He will take what he has been denied for so many years. He will devour anything that moves, every warm body, every flicker of life, every heartbeat that calls to him." I could feel the very weight of his words weighing down on me, chilling me far more than the frost-covered windows ever could. My throat felt dry, but the question clawed its way out anyway, bitter and sharp like a splinter I couldn't ignore. "What kind of God," I said, my voice quieter than I intended, "would let such a creature walk the earth?" Cedric didn't answer immediately. His eyes didn't move from the window, but the faintest flicker of something, contemplation maybe, crossed his face. "Perhaps the kind that stopped listening a very long time ago," he said finally, his tone flat, devoid of any comfort. "If there is a God, I do not think it grieves for us the way you hope it does." The answer didn't sit right with me. Something deep in me almost rebelled against it. I didn't know if I believed in a God, but I couldn't ever come to terms to the idea that this world, after everything that I'd seen, was governed by something cold enough to simply watch. Then what's the point? What's the point in any of this? Cedric turned to me now, his gaze unnervingly calm, like he had already made peace with some truth I hadn't yet grasped. "The point," he echoed. "The point isn't God. It isn't creation nor death. It's what you do while you're caught in between." His words stirred something inside me, a flicker of defiance, small but alive. "Maybe suffering is the test," he murmured. "Maybe the world is left to tear at itself, just to see what rises above it, and what doesn't." I stared at him, unsure whether to take comfort in his words or feel even more lost. "And if we don't?" Cedric turned back to the window, his reflection faint but ghostly in the frost-covered glass. "Then you deserve whatever comes for you." The silence that followed felt louder than anything I'd ever heard, the snow outside muffling the world into an unrelenting, suffocating quiet. I shifted my gaze from Cedric to the window, watching the snow fall, each flake landing softly on the already blanketed ground. My thoughts churned, heavy and relentless, until one broke free. "Do you think you're worth saving?" I asked, my voice low but steady. Cedric didn't move for a long moment, his eyes still fixed on the window, as though the answer lay somewhere out there in the frost-covered landscape. When he finally turned to me, his expression was unreadable, but carrying a weight I couldn't fully understand. "No," he said, simply at first, his voice almost a whisper, yet carrying a conviction that made it impossible to ignore. Not me, not any of us, not our kind. He leaned back slightly, his arms bowling across his chest as he gazed upwards, almost as if he were searching for something in the beams of the ceiling. We are not part of the natural world, Mr. Kent. Not in the same way you are. We exist outside of it, apart from the balance. The sun rises, things are born, things die, and the cycle continues. But us, we don't belong to that. We've severed ourselves from it. What we are, what we chose to become. I frowned, but he pressed on before I could speak. My family, we were of course born of the earth, just like anything else. But we twisted that gift. We made the choice to become something else, something unearthly. And in doing so, we gave up our place in the order of nature. We don't give life, we only take it. His gaze dropped, his sharp, pale eyes locking onto mine. There was no anger there, no bitterness, a raw honesty that made me feel like I shouldn't be looking at him. You could never understand what it's like to exist in a world where every living thing, anything blessed with a heartbeat, with warmth, with the spark of life, means nothing more to you than prey. To see something so fragile, so beautiful, and feel the hunger before anything else. His expression darkened faintly. Just the overpowering urge to rip into its flesh and consume the life within. He then lifted his skeletal hand to hold the curtain beside him. The cruelest part is that some part of you remembers what it was to be alive, even while the hunger tears the rest away. I didn't know what to say. Something in me wanted to argue, to offer some small thread of hope or comfort, but the look on his face stopped me. We don't ask for pity, Cedric continued. We lost the right to that a long time ago, but worth saving. He shook his head, the smallest, almost imperceptible smile tugging at the corner of his lips, though it carried no joy. No. How can you save something that wasn't meant to exist in the first place? Those words seemed to linger in the air for an eternity. How can you save something that wasn't meant to exist in the first place? The way he said it, like the very words opened up a whole new part of him I had never seen before. Sadness. I wanted to argue, to tell him how no one is beyond redemption. Anyone can be forgiven. But I couldn't. How could I convince someone who has seen themselves as a monster for so long that salvation could still be possible? The snow outside continued to fall, slow and silent, covering everything in its blankets. A world so still, so quiet, yet here we were, alive, for now. From then, time passed slowly, dragging like the heavy clouds outside. The gray dusk had deepened into an unforgetting darkness, and the gentle snow that had blanketed the land earlier had transformed into an unrelenting blizzard. The swirling wind howled through the house, slipping through the smallest cracks and sending faint whistles through the old walls. From the window, the storm was a chaotic blur of white and gray, obscuring any sense of the world beyond. It was eerie to watch, as though the house were the last place standing in an all-consuming void. By the fireplace, Darwin and I had settled into a game of chess, the crackling of the fire competing with the distant wail of the wind. The room glowed in flickering amber, the shadows of the chess pieces stretching and contorting on the board. Darwin tapped his chin as he studied the board, his brow furrowed with exaggerated concentration. "You know," he began, moving his knight forward, "if you told me a week ago that I'd be stuck in an ancient house, playing chess in an apocalyptic storm with the devil hunting us outside, I'd have asked to have a puff of whatever you were smoking." I smirked, sliding my bishop across the board. "Yeah? And now?" "Now?" he chuckled dryly. "Now I'm just hoping I make it out alive long enough to brag about how I crossed you at chess in Dracula's living room." "You're getting ahead of yourself," I gestured to the board. "Your queen is wide open." He leaned back, groaning theatrically. "Shit. At least let me get one good move in. I mean, we're probably going to be eaten alive in a few days anyway." "By Bael or these guys?" I asked. Darwin laughed, a rare sound that almost warmed the room. "Honestly, if we keep talking shit about them, I don't see us lasting long in this house." I snorted, moving my brook. "Well, at least you've still got coffee, so that's a win in my book." "Barely," he muttered. "Between this blizzard, this family, and knowing there's a bloodthirsty or powerful demon lurking around out there, I think the coffee's the only thing keeping me sane right now." There was a beat of silence as we both stared at the board. Outside, the wind slammed against the house like a low, menacing moan. "Do you think we'll get out of this?" I asked quietly, almost as an afterthought. Darwin glanced up, his usual humor fading a moment. "Honestly, I don't know. But if we don't, at least I can say I'll beat you in chess before we die." "You're still losing." "Not for long," he said with a sly grin, moving a piece into position. Over time, the chess game slowed as Darwin stared at the board, deliberating his next move. I sat back in my chair, absently rolling on one of the paws between my fingers, the fire crackling softly beside us. Every now and then, I glanced toward the frosted glass, watching the blizzard rage, its swirling chaos a stark contrast to the calm warmth of the room. Then, we heard it.